You're listening to the Journey Podcast. Ready to challenge conventional wisdom and discover how embracing the easy way out can simplify your journey and amplify your well-being? Join us today to find out more. This episode contains strong language and listener discretion is advised. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Journey Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. In this thought-provoking episode, we embark on a unique exploration of challenging the conventional wisdom surrounding the concept of taking the easy way out. While society often associates this phrase with negative connotations, our conversation unveils a different perspective. One that suggests that choosing the path of least resistance can be a strategic and healthful decision. We delve into the idea that opting for simplicity and ease can lead to improved balance, mental well-being, and overall life satisfaction, and we uncover the wisdom in embracing a more straightforward approach to life's challenges. Our guest shares valuable insights on how finding the easy way out in certain situations can contribute to enhanced self-confidence and resilience. Paul Levitin is a self-confidence coach, podcaster, and public speaker. Through his education and coaching company, the Happy Healthy Human Academy, he helps overworked millennials eliminate self-sabotage so that they can have unlimited energy, lose weight, and love the person they see in the mirror every day. Through his podcast, Happy Healthy Human, he aims to educate, inspire, and help 1 million people live happier, healthier lives. Let's meet Paul Levitin. Hi, Paul. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because taking the easy way out is such an interesting topic for today's episode and also for mental health and holistic healing. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and I've been looking forward to this as well.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to have you and to get to pick your brains a little bit with your wisdom and expertise today. Do you want to share a little bit about yourself, your story, your background, and what you do?
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to. Thank you again for the opportunity. So currently I am a podcaster, public speaker, and coach. My podcast is called Happy Healthy Human, and that's my company is the Happy Healthy Human Academy. So everything that I do is around exactly that, helping people be happier, healthier. Humans is the last word, because I think that all of this stuff that we have to work on and the stuff that holds us back is what I call human stuff. People like to think about what's unique to women or men or this age group or this whatever, and all of that stuff matters. But at the end of the day, what we really need to work on and the stuff that holds most of us back is just human nature. And the reason that I do this and how I got to this is because I started as a personal trainer. I started doing personal training in my early 20s, kind of just by happenstance. I was not an athlete. I didn't play sports growing up or anything like that. If anything, I was a little fat kid and I just needed a job. And it turns out that becoming a personal trainer is not very hard, contrary to what most people think. You can get an online certificate in a couple of weeks and pretty much any gym will hire you. So I needed a job. I became a personal trainer. But that actually led me, luckily, into the world of health and wellness. Because of my job, I started to work with people and work on myself. And I saw what a difference it made to be physically fit. I became very passionate about helping people become fit. But that led me to the mental side of well-being, because I started to see that as much as I could help people with their physical bodies, there was a missing piece there. And there was something that no amount of changing the body could help, A. And there was also a level of even telling people what to do, they often weren't able to do it. I could give someone a plan for eating or a plan for exercise, and there was still something holding them back, something that was stopping them from doing what they needed to do. I became very interested in and started learning more about psychology, human behavior, behavioral science, habit science, and all the things that make up the why behind the what. And eventually I left the fitness world behind because I realized that that was the main thing. It's easy to get people to work out or to do the workout if you can get them to do it. Telling people what to eat is not the hard part. It's getting them to actually stick to it that is the hard part. I started to realize that that was where I wanted to spend my time and my energy. And since then, again, created my podcast, created my coaching courses, all around helping people understand the why behind the what.
That sounds fascinating. What a journey. And I'm very curious as to what you found on why people have such trouble fostering change, even though we often know it's what we need and it's mostly what we want. When we look at something, we go, yes, I want to lose a few pounds. Yes, I want to be happier. But why can we often not follow through?
That's the crux of the issue, right? It's what we say we want, it's what we say we need, and yet we still take actions that are counter to that thing. How many times do we say, I know I need to eat healthy. I want to eat healthy. I want what eating healthy gets me, which is losing weight and being healthier. And yet we find ourselves in the McDonald's driveway or at a bottom of a pint of ice cream at the end of the day. And that in itself shows you how complicated this stuff is. This is what I always say. This is the stuff we're up against. It's human nature. The real root of it is what our conscious mind wants and what our subconscious mind wants are two different things, and they're often conflicting. And that's the real battle. People think it's about, oh, I don't know what to eat. Or again, this doesn't have to just be about fitness. I know I need to meditate. I know I need to exercise. I know I need to save for the future and budget and all of the different things that we quote unquote need to do. But that is completely opposite of what the body and brain want. And what the body and brain want are just safety. They want to feel safe and in control. And quite often, the things that we need to do to better ourselves in the long run are counter to what our body feels is best for us in the short run. So, calories and food are a perfect example. All of the things that are bad for us, quote unquote, like high calorie, high sugar, high this, high fat, whatever stuff, in the immediate, right now, our brain and our body feels that it's good for us because it's high calorie is energy. And if I have to run from a tiger in the next 5 minutes, I need more energy. So a Snickers bar is highly appealing to my survival brain, even though if I eat Snickers bars over and over and over, I'm going to develop diabetes and I'm going to be overweight and I'm going to have bad knees and all the other things, but that comes later. It's the constant battle between instant and delayed gratification. And everything in our society, everything in our current life is set up to lose that battle because everything that we need comes at the end of a long, sustained effort. And everything that we want is right now in this moment.
Yeah. So there is taking the easy way out of just listening to what our body wants. And I'm smiling as you're talking because I'm thinking of just recently when I had matzo sticks for breakfast because I was really short on time. And I know that is not good for me. Obviously, I can look that up everywhere on the internet. But if our lives are busy and we make those choices, and we do beat ourselves up afterwards, I think, a lot as well, because we do know that it wasn't the best choice. So where do we start then with breaking these habits and letting ourselves know that we are safe even while we're making these changes? If that is such a fundamental thing, where do we start with that?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Again, this is why this stuff is so complicated because it's not a simple answer. That's what people always want. They want a simple answer. And that's because, again, our brain wants a simple answer. Understand that a simple answer is safety to your brain. Again, everything comes back to safety. The more you have to think about something, the more energy expensive it is, the less your brain wants to do it. That's why something like just don't eat carbs, as annoying and horrible as a diet as that is appealing to our brain because it takes no thought. Whereas some carbs are probably good and some carbs are probably bad, and you can have some more and some less, and it depends on the time and blah, blah, blah. It's like all these details. It's like our brain is like, that's too much. Just give me a hard rule. No, even though we know that we will never stick to that. Everyone has had the experience of trying a no or low carb diet, and just about everyone has fallen off of that diet. We know that it won't work, but it feels appealing because it's just a very straightforward rule. So that's why our brain is always looking for these theoretically simple solutions. And where I like to start with people is helping them understand that this stuff is already hard enough. We have this inclination to just do more and to work harder. because of the way society is set up, because of the messaging that we've been told, right? This is the Nike, just do it. This is 75 hard. This is just all of these motivational gurus of like, you just got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You got to man up, like all this stuff. And it's like, there is some truth to that. Obviously, you have to do the work, but life is hard enough. And most people, when they start to think about creating positive change in their life, they do it as if it exists in a vacuum. They go, okay, I'm going to start eating healthier and I'm going to start sleeping more. And then I go, well, what about your kids? What time do your kids go to bed? How are you going to start sleeping more when your kids aren't? Oh, I'm going to start eating healthier. Well, what about the fact that you don't make all your meals, your wife does or your husband does? Or the fact that you eat half of your meals on the go because you're traveling for work and all this stuff. It's like people don't take all of the other stuff into account. And life is always going to throw curveballs at you. When I work with people, my goal is to help them make these changes as easy as possible. Because again, safety, your body and your brain's need for safety is going to push back against anything that's too challenging. I call this the New Year's resolution effect. What does everyone do on January 1st? Like, all right, this is going to be my year. I'm going to start eating healthy. I'm going to start exercising more. I'm going to start meditating. I'm going to start reading a book. I'm going to start sleeping more. I'm going to stop drinking alcohol. I'm going to stop smoking cigarettes. And it's like, you're doing too much. You're drinking through a fire hose. And that's why most people give up on all of that stuff before January is even over. We know how to make things harder. You can always do more. You can always cut more calories. You can always add another workout. You can always be harder on yourself. The real secret sauce is in the nuance. How do you make things easier on yourself? Because when it's easier, you don't get that pushback from your body, from that safety mechanism that it's looking for. So now, instead of fighting against yourself, you're working with the natural flows of energy in your body. And that actually gives you what you need, which is enough time. Because most people do too much work and they can't sustain it for long enough to see the result. Where instead, if you can do less work for a longer amount of time, that's how you get real sustained results, not just for 6 months, but for the rest of your life.
And with the clients that you work with, are these realistic things that busy people, busy moms, busy dads, career people can incorporate in their lives and actually sustain?
Well, yeah, that's the whole point. And that's a big part of what I do as a coach. It's funny, I was just talking to one of my clients yesterday and I was explaining, I was like, what I have to do as a coach is not tell you what to do. A lot of times it's pulling you back in, reeling you back in. Because so many people, again, they're like, all right, well, I know I need to do this. You just said before, I know what I should be eating. I could look online and see that this probably isn't very healthy. I can look up the calories if I want to. I know what to do. Everyone knows what they quote unquote should be doing, and yet they're not. Why is that? It's because when you have too much on your plate, you just push the whole thing to the side. Sometimes as a professional, as a coach, my goal is to help with an outside perspective. That's my real value. It's not telling you what to do. People think that a coach or a therapist or whatever else is like their value is like they're going to tell you what to do. Just tell me the answer and then I'll do it. That's not the true value you get of someone, of a coach or a therapist or a mentor or something like that. The real value is just a second perspective because we always see things in one way. So my clients might see things like, oh, I know I have to do this. I need to lose the weight, so I have to do this. Or again, I just use weight loss as an analogy because I think a lot of people can jive with it, but this is about any type of behavior change, anything that you want to do, but you're not doing. Well, I know I just need to work harder. I know I just need to stop making excuses, or your excuses are valid and it's already hard. It's hard enough. And what would make you succeed is actually dialing it back from 100 to 70 and giving it enough time and enough energy, making it realistic. As you just said, when people come to me with goals, it's like, well, a very tactical thing that your listeners can do is on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that you can achieve this goal? 1 being it's impossible, 10 being there's no possible way that I don't do this. So I'll say if someone says, well, again, I'm going to cut out carbs, I'm going to start saving $100 a week for their finances, or I'm going to start working on my business every night. When I come home at night, I'm going to work 2 hours on my business. I'm going to say, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that you can do that? They're like a 6. That's not setting you up for success. What would you have to do to make that a 9 or a 10? And then they go, well, 2 hours is a lot. I really don't have that time. Like I could find 2 hours, but like if I only did an hour, I would be like an 8. Like, okay, what if you only did 45 minutes? But that's not enough. Like, but how confident are you that you can do 45 minutes? I'm a 10 confidence. I always have 45 minutes that I just watch TV at the end of the day. So I can just switch that to working on my business. Okay, well, I'd rather you be a 10 that you're going to do it for 45 minutes than a 6 that you're going to try to do it for 2 hours and then you're not going to do it. because you're going to feel like it's too much and it's too overwhelming, and then you don't do it. And then, as you mentioned, you're going to double down and beat yourself up about it because now you've set a goal that you haven't done. So now it feels like I'm failing, feels like I'm not doing the thing. It feels like screw this. It feels like there's no point. And that's when we get into self-sabotage. All of this stuff circles back around to your brain is always looking for safety, and it's always looking to save energy. Anytime you're doing something that doesn't feel like it's getting a result, your brain is going to go, well, we should quit this. There's no reason to keep doing this. I'm setting myself up for failure. I don't like failure, so I'm going to quit. So when you have a goal that you are, even if you set that goal of 2 hours and you only did 45 minutes and you did that 4 times a week, or you set the goal of 45 minutes and you did that 4 times a week, it's still the same 45 minutes. It's still the same 3 hours total of work. But one of them feels like failure because it feels like I was supposed to do 2 hours and I only did 45 minutes. One of them feels like success because I was supposed to do 45 minutes and I did 45 minutes. So the person who does the 45 minutes that they set out to do is much more likely to keep doing that in the long term than the person who's continually saying they're going to do 2 hours and only getting 45 minutes. It's not about the actually work that gets done. It's about, does it feel like a success or does it feel like a failure? Setting yourself up with realistic goals is huge because if you're setting unrealistic goals, you're telling your brain like, this isn't going to last. And if it's not going to last, I might as well just quit now.
Yeah, absolutely. And where does that pressure to set these unrealistic goals usually come from? What do you find in your clients? Because it almost feels like we do that to ourselves.
Yeah, combination of things. Everyone's different, but if you had to sum it up, it's how we were raised, it's society, and it's human nature. Again, this stuff is hard, so we want to get to the finish line as quickly as possible. So it makes sense. Well, if 45 minutes is good, then I might as well do 2 hours. We're trying to get through the hard part as quickly as possible. Again, it's the same thing. Oh, if running for a half hour is good, then running for an hour is double good. But maybe not, because maybe your knees start to hurt at the 45 minutes or something like that. People think that more is better, but more isn't inherently better. Better is better. And there's actually a point of diminishing returns where doing more will actually hurt you. That's why it's not so simple as work harder and do more. And that's why we get back to it's actually taking the easier way. And that's, again, then you add on top of that societal pressure. You add on top of that how you were raised. Your parents might have had a certain view around work and effort and laziness and things like that that's ingrained in you. So we have this story in our head that work harder is better. It has to do with our value as a person, and it has to do with all of this stuff. And then again, we want to get through the uncomfortable part. When we're dieting, I want to get to the end. When we're working on a business, I want to be successful. When we're going to therapy, it's like, I want to win therapy. I want to figure out my stuff. But the middle is the whole thing. The start and the finish are only 1%. 99% of it is the middle. And that's where we get stuck because then we feel like it's too long and we don't like that. And again, this is why my whole thing is, again, reining people back in, because there's a saying that I love, which is it's the start that stops most people. So many people don't even get started. But then everyone listening has probably seen, there's that picture. It's like a little cartoon of like two guys in like a diamond mine. And like one guy is like turned around and his head is slumped and he's like going back away. And the other guy is like just about to break through. And they go, the only difference is you stopped right before the finish. So it's like, well, which one is it? Is it the start that's the hardest, or is it the finish that's the hardest? And it's like, somehow it's oddly both. And it's also the middle. All of it is hard, but the middle lasts longer than anything else. It's like when you're running a marathon, the starting line, everyone's excited. Like there's high energy. People are pumped up and the gun goes off. And then when you're almost at the finish line, no matter how much energy you have, you get a burst of energy because you see the finish line. But when you're on mile 17, and as far as you look back, there's nothing. And as far as you look forward, there's nothing. That's when it becomes really hard, where it's pure mental fortitude that's going to get you through it. And that's the part where most people quit. Most people, if your goal is close enough, like you can muster up the willpower to get through it. Okay, like I can do one more rep or one more whatever. I can keep going for another month. But it's when you're right in the middle that people tend to give up. So what I need to do is to make it easy enough that that middle isn't so off-putting that they're able to stay in it long enough to reach the finish line.
Yeah, I like that, actually, the analogy that you're putting out there. I love that. And I think there's also a lot of guilt involved in when we say to ourselves, okay, well, I'm going to do it in twice the time, because there is a certain component that goes, oh, okay, now you're dragging this out. You're being lazy about it. You're not going to get it done. But I think it also gives us that space to really prepare for that middle part And the middle part is difficult. As you said, that is the part that usually where you're there, you're going, why did I do this again? And I'm not seeing the results yet I'm getting up 6 o'clock in the morning to do this every day. There's a bit of guilt involved if we do give ourselves the time to properly space this out so that we can have the energy to push this through. I think that's really great if we are making these changes to have sort of an accountability person like yourself, a coach who can help us stay on track and maybe help us through that middle bit as well.
Yeah, for sure. I literally call it the long middle. It's the longest piece of that. And that's exactly it. Most people are doing the right thing already, but they give up too soon. People will say all the time, well, I tried that diet and it didn't work. Like, no, every diet works. You just didn't do it for long enough. Oh, I tried going to the gym. That didn't work for me. That's false. It's science. The gym works for everyone. What you didn't do was give it long enough to work. I tried therapy. It didn't work. Well, how many sessions did you do? How long did you try it for? I tried meditating, but it didn't work. Was it 30 days? Everyone's timeline is different. Some people see results very quickly. Those people are fast responders, and those people are lucky. Most people are not in that realm, and they feel disappointed because their timeline doesn't match up to the timeline that they want. Meaning we all have a friend who, as soon as they start eating a salad and go to the gym one time, they drop 10 pounds. And then we go and eat the same salad and go to the same gym. And then we go, what the hell? We didn't drop the same weight like she did, like he did. That's not fair. And now we quit. Because again, your brain is looking for reasons to quit all the time. It's always going to happen. Again, this is what we're up against. In the beginning, I said, this is human stuff. All of what I'm doing is just setting the table for you to understand this is the battle that you're fighting and whatever you're trying to change. It's like you're up against, your brain is going to want you to quit at every moment. Your brain is going to look for reasons that what you're doing is not working. Your brain is going to trick you and say like, oh, you tried already. This is it. So all of this stuff is making things harder. Again, that's why my thing is make things easier, because you already have all of that stacked against you. And now you think that the answer is to then work harder and double down. It's like, no, that's just going to lead to you burning out more quickly. So my thing is easier. And I literally, to make this easier, made an acronym for people. It's EASIER, like the word easier. And this is a checklist that I take people through when they're thinking about making a new habit or a new routine to see, is this something that I can stick to long term? I have this checklist in a PDF form that anyone who wants, I'll give you a link that people can click on, but I'll run through it super quickly so people can understand, but you don't have to write this down or anything. I'll give you it for free. E is for enthusiastic. And this is about not the goal, but the habit. So again, a lot of people say, well, I want to lose 30 pounds. They're enthusiastic about that. If I could wave a magic wand and give it to them, they would take that. I want to save a bunch of money. I want to build a business. But are you enthusiastic about the daily steps that you have to take? So if you say, I want to lose 30 pounds and I'm going to do it by cutting out carbs, now my question is, are you enthusiastic about cutting out carbs? Not are you enthusiastic about losing 30 pounds? Because again, you're going to be enthusiastic about that. Are you enthusiastic about the steps that it takes to get there? And if you say no, then I'm like, you're probably not going to stick to it then. You're probably going to go back to eating carbs and then you're going to gain the weight back. Enthusiastic about the action steps. A is for accessible. Is this accessible with your current limitations? Meaning, again, I want to start going to bed at 10 o'clock and waking up at 5 a.m. Okay, but what time do your kids go to bed? What time does your husband go to bed or your wife go to bed? Is that reasonable for you to set up in the reality of the way that your life is? Because a lot of times, if you're being honest with yourself, it's not, and you're setting yourself up for failure and trying to fit a round peg into a square hole. Is it actually realistic for you to think of that? S is for straightforward. Can you tell me in simple, straightforward language how you're going to get from A to B, B to C, all the way to Z? Because if you can't, you're overly complicating things. And again, your brain, always looking for reasons to quit, is going to go, this is too complicated, screw this. Self-sabotage. I is for imperfect. Perfection is an unattainable, unrealistic, impossible idea. And now we're talking about longevity and consistency. Now you're talking about consistent perfection. So that's doubly, triply impossible. You have to be okay with the negatives as much as the positives. If you're investing in the stock market, you have to be okay with the downs that come with the ups. When you're going into business, you're going to have good days, but you have to be okay with bad days as well. When you're going to the gym, some days you're going to feel great. You're going to feel full of energy. And some days it's going to feel like someone turned the gravity up 10 times. And the weights that are usually light are going to feel heavy. You have to be okay with that. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. Those days are coming. So if you're only coasting when you have great days, the first wobbly day is going to knock you off course. E, now the second E stands for exponential. I've spent this whole time explaining that you can't just keep adding more work. You can't just work harder, work harder, work harder. There's an upper limit. I already said diminishing returns. At a certain point, even the work you do will actually hurt you. Since you can only do so much work, do you need to look for things that give you exponential returns? I don't want to keep trading one for one, one for one, one for one. I want things where I put in one and I get back 10. I put in one and I get back 100. For me, an example is riding my bike. Like I started riding my bike to work instead of driving. And then I realized that it actually took me less time to ride my bike than it did to drive because I didn't have to deal with traffic. I didn't have to deal with lights. I was like, oh, I saved time. Then in that same amount of time that I would usually drive to work, I was also getting exercise in. I was also getting sun on my skin, which is something that I always need. I was also saving money because I wasn't paying for gas and I wasn't paying for parking and things like that. I was also listening to podcasts. So now I was learning as I was going. And I was like, this one thing is just riding my bike, but it's giving me a 5x return. So that's a habit that I'm never going to stop doing because it's like, well, that would just be silly of me to stop doing that and to go back to driving my car. It just wouldn't make any sense. And to this day, I ride my bike pretty much every day because of that. And then the last piece, R, right? EASIER stands for repeatable. Is this something that you can come back and do every single day? Not just again until you get the goal, because that's a big thing. A lot of people can grit their teeth and bear it. Of course, I can do the diet until I lose the weight. Of course, I can budget until I have enough money saved. It's like, can you keep doing it after you've reached the goal? Because if you can't do it after you've reached the goal, you're going to go back to the way you were living before. And if you go back to the way you were living before, you're going to go back to the results you had before. So all of these things combined, now I run anything that I'm thinking about doing. Again, I'm saving money, eating a certain way, exercising a certain way, sleeping more. I run it through this checklist. And if I can answer all of these questions, then I can feel confident that this is a habit that is going to be sustainable in the long term and something I'm going to be able to stick to.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that checklist with our listeners. And we'll be sure to put the link as well and where they can find that. I think that's actually really great to think about what you're planning in that kind of way, because of course we have the new year coming up and most people will be saying, oh, it's January. I need to make some kind of changes. I need to put some new goals and habits together. But it's good to take a look like you just have through that checklist and say, well, is this even realistic for me? Or is that something I actually even want? Or am I just saying that because I feel like I need to be changing something? So yeah, thank you for going through that. If our listeners have gotten curious and they would like to know more or they would want to work with you, do you offer any programs or services? And how can listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah, for sure. And of course, I appreciate that. The best thing to do is one, to check out my podcast, Happy Healthy Human. I have hundreds of episodes of stuff like this. And people can contact me on social media at Paul Levitin on any platform. It's just my name, very easy to find. And I have courses around just stuff like this. One of my courses is how to eliminate self-sabotage, another course on habit building, another course on mindset. So these type of things I call meta skills, the skills that will allow you to then be successful in your weight loss, in your fitness, in your relationships, in your business. Those are the type of things that I have courses on. So if people want to talk about that stuff, shoot me a message, ask me questions, or just check out the podcast.
Amazing. And of course, we will be linking to all of Paul's offerings in the show notes as well, including his podcast and his socials. So be sure to check there on how you can get in touch with him. And this has been another incredible episode. And I really hope our listeners have enjoyed our journey into taking the easy way out as much as I have. It has been a pleasure chatting with you today, Paul. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you for having me. This was a great time.
Thanks. Take care. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Journey podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Journey on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejourney.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.